Migrants are all basically the same, aren't they?
No.
Just, migrant. Doesn't matter where they come from. Doesn't matter what they look like. Doesn't matter their background. They're all basically the same. And this is basically the Conservative Party view on migration. And I hate it.
Ukraine, Pakistan, basically the same country.
Who can tell the difference? And that's actually Afghanistan rather than Pakistan. But yeah, Afghan, which is basically the same as Pakistan. Afghan, Ukrainian, man, woman.
Yeah.
Basically the same. And this idea that there is essentially an interchangeable migrant, just the category of migrant, and we can just put them in a category and say they're a migrant. Well, this comes from liberalism. As you may know, YouTube arbitrarily demonetized our channel, so I'd like to thank Lotus.com's first sponsor, Atlas VPN, for supporting us and providing a service that is actually useful as we move into our new cyberpunk dystopia. Atlas VPN Premium is just $1.83 per month, with 3 months extra and a 30-day money-back guarantee if you aren't happy with the service. Follow the link in the description to sign up. You'll be liberated from region locks, so you can watch streaming content from anywhere in the world, but I think more importantly is that it masks your IP. Firstly, this prevents us from being spied upon by the various state dragnets. We find it important that it keeps your Google searches private, which prevents them from tailoring the results based on your past searches, which prevents them from hiding information because they've built up a profile against us. It also protects you from being the target of malicious ads, trackers, and malware, and informs you when someone is trying to steal your data. There has been a spate of people getting their accounts hacked recently, and Atlas VPN helps protect against that. Atlas VPN is also easy to install. Even I could do it without assistance. What you're seeing now is the footage I recorded of myself installing the thing. Once you're logged in, you can see that you just need to click on the location that you want to tell the internet where you want to be from, and you're all set. To repeat then, Atlas VPN Premium is just $1.83 per month with a 3-month extra and a 30-day money-back guarantee if you aren't happy with the service. Follow the link in the video description to sign up, and remember, supporting them is supporting us, so please do check them out. Liberalism is a bad idea.
We've been force-fed it for so long, but to be against it makes you a racist. Everyone has to be for diversity. Diversity is our strength, but they never tell us how it's our strength.
You know what's interesting? Liberalism actually doesn't really believe in diversity because it believes in the homogeneity of the human race. All people are all the same all over the world.
That's where we end up with diversity, right?
Absolutely. And
everyone is beige, everyone is the same.
But it's also the presupposition of liberalism that everyone is actually fundamentally the same, and therefore diversity is kind of a misnomer for anything that liberalism could be asking for. And I talked about this in my Why Liberalism is a Universal Acid podcast, because I used to be a liberal. I spent a long time defending liberalism.
For shame.
Not for shame. Liberalism has virtues, but it's just founded on philosophical premises that are just wrong.
Yeah.
And when you start going further and further with these premises, if you would stop at a certain point, which the political liberals wish to, then liberalism would be fine. But you've got a kind of liberalism that is called comprehensive liberalism that I talk about in this podcast that actually says, no, we need full spectrum liberalism. We need it in everything all the time. And that's why it becomes the acid, as I explain in that podcast. So go and watch that. But anyway, so let's begin with the boat migrants. Who doesn't like talking about boat migrants? They were 90% men. That's why every single picture you see, like you can see the rare picture. Oh, look, we've got a child in this picture.
Well, they still are, aren't they? Still are 90% men.
We'll get to that in a minute, actually.
Oh, dear.
In 2021, as just a sample, 90% of them were adult men.
But if you're fleeing a war, if this is a war zone that they're escaping, right? If you are in a war, you send your women and your children off.
You would think.
And the fighting-age men stay to fight the war.
This is why I'm in no way resentful about Ukrainian migrants coming here, because that's exactly what you would think.
Well, we'll get to that.
We will get to this, because that's exactly how.
But if you're not fleeing a war, if you're running towards a war, if you're setting up an invasion or incursion, you send your fighting-age men.
That is generally how Britain has been conquered in past eras. It wasn't women and children being sent first.
Or if just in an imperial measure, you want to send over people who can extract resources, economic benefits and such, and send them back to you. These are the sorts of people that you could send as well.
Yeah. But anyway, so we've been putting these people in hotels at our expense, not because they forced us to, not because we lost the war, but because for some reason our government are a bunch of traitors.
Well, we were also thinking about putting them on barges, which would be just as expensive. And then some empty RAF bases ships as well.
Literally cruise ships. You've got to pay a couple of grand to go on a cruise ship, Harry. They just need to cross the channel illegally.
But even the Rwanda scheme, which I'm in favour of, would be incredibly expensive for us.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm in favour of sending them to Rwanda too, because that sounds dangerous. But
it's not.
I know,
It's a wonderful place.
I'm just joking.
I love Rwanda.
I'm just joking. Anyway, so the British government don't know what to do with themselves. And they're like, hang on a second, this is costing us billions, literally billions, which we'll get to in a minute. And so former Secretary of State Brandon Lewis has endorsed a new report, as the Express tell us. If I get to... okay, you control that, John.
You and John were fighting.
Yeah, no, I'll let John control that because I'm too single-minded. But yeah, so the Tories have a new report that says, by the way, we're going to engage in some, quote, radical proposals. And the radical proposal is, would you like to house an Afghan migrant?
No, never. It's a ridiculous proposal. I mean, but these reports, and I've worked for the Policy Exchange in the past. So
I was going to ask you.
I was going to. Is this the sort of thing that they would often throw out at all?
Well, my report was never published.
Oh, what was your report, Tom, if you're allowed to say?
Set up Dover like Normandy.
Yeah. I talked about education. I did research into education and how it's being captured and how the government was at fault. But you'll notice none of the reports coming out of PX implicate the government, because they always have to come out favourable. Because it's, well, Michael Gove is on the board, and my former boss is now Lord Godson. So these people are with the Tories. They can never be against the Tories.
It sounds an awful lot like it's just a place where you can go in, hand out favours to one another, and propose policies that the Tories already want to do, but it's so that they can say that this is a place, we got it from a third party.
This is how the think tank system works. Absolutely, but it shouldn't work like that. They should be proposing policies that will help the country, regardless of what the governing party thinks, but they're not brave enough or bold enough.
Yeah, I mean, I did take a quick look into
It's a kind of patronage system, though, isn't it?
It is.
That's the problem.
I mean, I looked in, and they've had funding from places like the Gates Foundation in the past, which is not particularly good for me. No, it's...
Anyway, so the key of this report is they're like, well, look, people were so generous and willing to take in Ukrainian women into their houses, surely they'll feel the same about Afghan men. And they expect, to, what was the exact quote?
But to be fair to Brandon Lewis, this wasn't his report. This is Rakib Ihsan's report.
No, but he did endorse it.
But Rakib Ihsan writes from a Muslim point of view, which isn't, I don't think, in the best interest of Great Britain.
No, certainly not. Not if these are his solutions.
Yes, well, the report cites generosity shown by Brits towards Ukrainians, as if this is just going to be the same. And so, of course, what they want to do is try and get middle-class Lib Dem voters to take in Afghans. Now, there's a part of me that wants them to be brainwashed into it, right? There is a part of me that wants them to learn firsthand. But also, I also don't want them to do that, because it'll be really horrible. Yeah. The results will be cruel and unusual.
But they won't do it, will they? They'll find any excuse not to. Oh, my house is too small. I've only got 4 spare bedrooms.
It'll be a Martha's Vineyard situation. Like when Ron DeSantis tried to do the same thing to Martha's Vineyard. They're the only ones really in the position to do so. And then when you open up the gates to this kind of suggestion, well, they go, well, I suppose that some of the poorer people could take them in instead. That's what would end up happening. And even if it did end up going to the middle class houses, I hate the fact that they go refugees welcome. I don't want them to get hurt. I still don't want them to get hurt.
I agree. I don't want them to get hurt either. But I'm going to learn until they do.
For God's sake, Carl. But that's the thing. It's a meme.
So it's like when your child wants to take the pizza when it's too hot. Yeah. And you tell them no several times, but eventually you're like, well, okay, take it.
It seems like a particularly brutal variation of that, I've got to be honest.
Like I said, I mean, I think these people should still be instantly deported.
I mean, yes.
But they're all like, well, no, refugees welcome. So, okay, well...
I think a lot of these people do need to go home. And a lot of the problem for me as well is that this seems like a distraction from the fact that the government is still letting in record numbers of legal migrants when it's demonstrable at this point that the country can't handle them.
Oh, yeah, we'll get to all of that.
This is all a big mishmash, though, isn't it? What's a refugee? What's a migrant? What's an illegal immigrant? All of these boundaries have been crossed. And we need to say, if we want to help countries, which we should help countries, let's help the people in their native countries. That's where our foreign intervention should come into play. And then we don't have as many people coming over. But also, if we have people coming over, they should be from countries that have views aligned with ours, that have a culture, a religion, and are generally in line with our way of thinking, which means I think we should take on board Christian refugees rather than Muslim refugees.
I agree. Bring back the empire.
Be preferable.
Bring back the empire. Can we have that as a campaign for the next election?
Why not?
Well, if we bring back the empire, they won't have to come over here because we'll just improve all of their countries.
So anyway,
colonialism worked.
There is a direct quote here that I find hilarious. The key to better sharing the load of the wealthier parts of progressive liberal Britain, relatively pro-refugee areas which tend to have higher housing costs, is galvanizing voluntary spirits. But as you said, they're not going to do it. They can say, "Oh, I've got too many spare bedrooms for a migrant. I can't take."
You see meme videos of all of the refugees welcome parades that they do, where people
Yes.
go around. Oh, do you want to take some in? Oh, I'm only in a flat share, mate.
Yeah.
There you go. That's the answer that you'll get.
Then maybe get off the street and stop happening. But anyway,
Who's that guy? Not political or something.
I think it's that person.
this is starting to take on dimensions of sort of billeting migrants with the local population, which I mean is the Third Amendment. You can't billet soldiers, is in fighting age men, with civilians, because that's awful. Because fighting age men aren't always the most trustworthy and decent of people, especially if they break into your country illegally. Anyway, it's going to be organizations like Refugees at Home that are going to be responsible for connecting those with a spare room in their home to refugees and asylum seekers. How many do you think they've done? Out of the total number, 4,700 refugees. Out of the over 96,000 that the government is willing to admit to, but probably far more than that. So 5%.
I mean, we've seen the figures of how many are coming in, and we've seen the figures of how many have been sent out. So 96,000, that's just a lie. That's just an outright lie.
It's going to be way more, but these are the official figures on Wikipedia. And so by their own numbers, they've managed to house 5% of the refugees with a Liberal Democrat, which is far too few.
I can't understand why we don't have a system of working out which refugees are genuine refugees and processing them faster and deporting the ones that aren't successful.
It would probably be because it would be too easy to do so, and then people would be too easy to accuse you of racism for pointing out the
I think I might have an answer to that.
Oh, okay, all right.
Which I'll give you in a second.
All right.
But, because you may remember that the migrants are quote unquote children. One of them was found to be 41 years old.
Was he in a secondary school?
He was, yeah.
He's just been held back a long time.
Yeah.
He was, quote, the oldest individual we've encountered. 41.
How do you not tell when a man is 41 years old?
And this was obviously a big thing a couple of years ago. But there are people who have profound respect for our civilizations, as you can see. This is why they can't identify who they are and send them back, because they destroy their passports as they're crossing the ocean.
They should not be allowed to cross.
Yeah.
I think Australia's approach is far better. Let's get gunboats out there. Let's get a proper deterrent.
Yeah, there you go.
We don't have a
in the
navy.
first place. We don't have a navy, do we?
Well, not really.
Well, I don't want to interject too much, but I don't know if you've got it in here, but there is something else that's very disturbing about this whole thing, where you've got these homes for refugees. Are you aware of an organization? I've been sent this information through by people. Are you aware of an organization called Serco?
Yeah.
SERCO.
Oh, yeah, they're the ones who are organizing the hotels and stuff.
Yes, they're also got a landlord scheme where if a landlord has the empty homes, they want to be able to house migrants. And the government in May was
pay for it.
Yeah, well, the government will pay for it, but they also they're talking about taking away certain restrictions on landlords for multiple occupancy homes, which means that it's easier to get them in, and also they don't even have to fit the safety regulations. So random people in communities who never asked for any of this stuff will suddenly, out of nowhere, potentially because you've got a landlord with a home that's empty next to you, just get their street invaded.
Yeah.
No communication regarding
definitely going to happen. And of course, they're going to get benefits. I looked this up on Citizen Advice. This is amazing because if you claim asylum and you're given refugee status, you actually get the asylum claimant payments stopped. And okay, well, that's good, isn't it? No, because then they can just start claiming a whole host of other benefits, such as universal credit, pension benefits.
What?
I've literally just walked off the boat. I've been given refugee status. Give me my pension benefit.
Ridiculous.
Housing benefit, of course, and a refugee integration loan.
There are Brits that are struggling to get by that cannot get on the benefit system because all of the money is going elsewhere. Of course, there are genuine refugees who need support, but we have to have a system in place to help these people rather than letting it be an attractive benefit scheme.
Yeah, there are far too many young men who are adventurers from foreign lands that are not at war, that are not really refugees or asylum seekers, who are coming here because we know that they know that we are stupid and we'll just give them free money.
Well, you can get a flight from Europe for 20 quid, right? Yeah. So why would you pay 10 times that, maybe 20 times that to get a boat and ditch your paperwork in the ocean on the way over?
Because this gets you into this system.
Exactly.
That's the reason.
So they're gaming the system. They're not trying to be by the book.
They know exactly what they're doing. Anyway, so enjoy your Afghan migrant. The ministers are considering launching a Home for Afghans scheme following a similar government-funded plan for Ukrainians. What I love about this is that, Robert Jenrick, Michael Gove, the Veterans Minister, Johnny Mercer, they've all recently met to discuss how thousands of Afghans can be housed after being evicted from hotels in August. And they literally say, well, because 124,000 people arrived under the Homes for Ukraine scheme, this must work. So we know that it's 124,000 Ukrainian women versus 90,000 Afghan men. Surely this is just all the same. And they literally say this. This scheme is ready and is the equivalent for Homes of Ukraine. So really, I would urge the government to take us up on this and make sure their supposed safe routes are actually safe routes. The Homes for Ukraine scheme has been a superb one we should all be proud of. If it's possible to create a comparable scheme for Afghans, that's something we should consider.
I don't think it is.
Mental.
Afghans and Ukrainians are very different from one another.
Well, not Afghan men and Ukrainian women are even more different from each other.
Yes,
absolutely bizarre.
It's unbelievable.
I think
this is what's in their head.
This comes from that same policy exchange document as well. This was the idea. I read through a little bit of it, and it was saying that the whole plan was to reorientate the Homes for Ukraine scheme to open it up to other nationalities. So not just Afghans, it'll be Pakistanis and all sorts, that Saudi Arabians, Syrians, in your home, in your living room.
A bunch of Muslims.
Yes. Near your knives in your kitchen, presumably.
Hostile states.
Good stuff. Now, the UN, of course, were like, yes, the Ukrainians were 90% women. Like this is their figures.
As it should be.
Well, I mean, they actually have.
Well, I assume the 10% were boys and girls.
Well, women and children.
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah, because the fighting age men in Ukraine stayed behind to fight, which is what you would expect.
And it's just very interesting how the UN Refugee Agency was like, well, you've got to stop putting these Ukrainian women in the homes of single men because they are at risk of sexual exploitation. So if you bring single Ukrainian women over, you can't house them with men, single men, because they could get molested.
Sure.
I mean, this is true.
Just take this Afghan with a cultural, I don't think I'm going to be allowed to say what I was going to say then.
Temper yourself.
With distinct cultural practices.
Right.
And just put them in a house full of children.
I mean, after all,
they've got no problem with this.
Nothing bad ever happened in Germany in 2015, right?
No,
not once.
No. Anyway,
it's just insanity that this is being considered. I saw the links from the Labour Party as well that they want to potentially enforce this policy. If you have a spare room, they could make local councils, force you to take.
They are literally going to billet Afghans in your house with your children.
Oh, well, Labour had the New Britain document, which just said that they wanted to completely change the entire way the political system in the UK works from the ground up, so that they can ensure that the social status, the social attitudes that we have now stay essentially as Britain's constitution for all time going forward.
I don't want a new Britain. I want the old Britain.
I know, as do I.
Anyway, but don't worry. I know you guys have been worried, right? But they're going to be taught to be good neighbours.
Oh, like in Sweden. like in Sweden, yeah.
Afghanistan and Pakistan aren't even good neighbours. So when they bring them over here, how are they going to be good neighbours?
There was a case in Norway where they were trying to teach the Muslim immigrants respect for women, and one of them ended up raping the teacher who's teaching them respect for women.
Well, Rakib Ihsan, who wrote this report, we don't speak any longer because I pointed out the issue of bringing people over with their own current warfare situations. For example, the Muslims and the Hindus that were fighting in Leicester, I pointed out that we're bringing foreign wars over to the United Kingdom. It's not in our best interests. He didn't like that, but this is clearly what's going to be happening.
Oh, yes.
If you don't mind me asking, how do people get involved in these think tanks in the first place, like Policy Exchange?
They're conscripted from the Labour Party, I assume.
No. I suppose it's people that are writing. So if you're writing for the Telegraph, Daily Mail, and such like that.
Oh, so there's particular channels they'll be recruiting from.
Yeah. Very similar channels to, I mean, a lot of people who work in these think tanks go on to become MPs or SPADs.
Yeah.
So it's all of that Westminster bubble.
Yeah, I saw it was partially founded by Michael Gove itself. So
anyway, so on arrival, asylum seekers will be given an introductory briefing in the reception room where there is a sign that says welcome in English and a number of other languages. They'll be given a welcome pack, including toiletries, and it will also include guidance on how to be a good neighbour.
This is so lame. This is ridiculous.
It's preposterous.
We cannot keep importing our enemies and expecting them to play nice.
They know that we are weak.
We are weak.
I didn't say I totally agree. We are completely weak, and they know it, and so they're just taking advantage.
Yeah.
And they know that we know, and yet they're doing it anyway. Do you remember the picture of the children who were taken off that boat a while ago? And so they just have thick stubble on their faces, and they're like smirking.
Yeah.
And they just mature faster than over here. That's what it must
that was
be.
literally the argument that a bunch of lefties online were making. It's like, yeah, well, it's hard overseas. And it's like, it's not that hard. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
But anyway, they're going to be put in quite rural villages close to an RAF base, disused RAF base, that they expect to be overwhelmed by 1,700 asylum seekers. So they're like, yeah, so we're going to teach you to be good neighbors. It's like, they're not going to be good neighbors.
This has been going on for so long. Like when I was a teacher, I remember we had occasionally an African kid, I say kid, would join our school. We know that these were young adults, but they gamed the system and got an incorrect passport in order to get in and stay in. But they had good value. They had Christian values. So there wasn't
There's
a problem.
start. Yeah.
These people do not have the same value set. This is going to be a massive issue. We cannot have young adults in school with children, especially if they come from a Pakistani Muslim or a Afghanistani Muslim background.
And the fact that you say that like everybody knew when these kids were coming in that they weren't kids and they shouldn't really be there.
Yeah.
It's a complete emperor's wearing no clothes. Emperor's got no clothes on situation because everybody can see it. But if you say it, then
racist.
Yeah, there you go.
I love this so much, right? There's a guide that's presented to every individual. They're given details in their own language on how to advise them to be a good neighbor. We're really keen that people understand how you fit in because that's a very different culture. It's a very different environment, and it's really important they understand that. We talk to them about what is deemed acceptable with noise and don't hang around on street corners. As if this is going to work. Like, it's just ridiculous. Anyway, so there's a couple of other quick points that I just want to knock down here. You get people saying, well, hang on a second. There's an economic benefit to all of this migration.
There isn't.
Yeah, no, there's really not. This was a study done from 2014 that claimed, well, European migrants make us 15 billion a year, which is good. But non-EU migrants make us 5 billion a year, paying into the system about 3% more than they took out. That's a very narrow margin, isn't it?
I don't actually care. I don't care if they're
I don't
billions a
care
year.
at all.
Me neither.
The GDP should not be the focus of the country. This is where the Tories have gone wrong. It's not the main measure of a good country.
I totally agree, but this is just one of those points that they'll bring up and is wrong.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to knock it down.
I mean, yeah, if my disenfranchisement means the country is 0.3% richer on a GDP graph, I don't care.
No.
That's not what I'm after here.
But it's also false. It's also not the case. Actually, various other studies have shown it costs us probably about 114 billion. Between 1995 and 2011, immigrants cost the UK that Migration Watch have been keeping on top of. And even if that were the case, it looks like all of the gains that the legal immigrants putatively would have made for Britain have been wiped out simply by the illegal immigration. The government themselves say that this is costing 3 billion a year and rising. And to deport them, they say it's going to cost 6 billion over 2 years. So 3 billion. So the same amount of money. Okay, well then just do it. Just do it. Get rid of them. And obviously, this is why the UK government's like, well, we'll just give them amnesty. Just give them amnesty, bro. Like, they actually found a child in one of these pictures. Incredible.
I mean, for me, I think a lot of this, it all ends up leading to this. This is what you see happening in the devolved parliament in Wales, where they suggested that they would just outright give the right to vote to all of these people who are in the country illegally.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's partially part of the motivation. I don't just think these people are motivated entirely by ideology and liberalism. I think a lot of it is to do with these are just evil, power-hungry people who want to stay in power and know that if they can just import an entire new demographic in and give these people benefits, then that will basically maintain their power for as long as they need it to. It won't necessarily work, but that's the idea.
It does work. This is why the Labour Council areas and the Labour local authority areas have covered up essentially Pakistani Muslim rape gangs for so long, because these are the people that vote them into power.
Yeah. Something like 90% of Muslims in Britain vote Labour.
Yeah. Which is why the Labour Party is constantly pandering.
Yeah.
If you appreciated that episode from the podcast The Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content that's on the site, such as the Brokenomics series, this episode on aliens. If you'd like to find out what else is being put out, you can follow on Getter at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.